All right, welcome everybody. I am so excited to be here tonight with Liz Clayton Fuller, and she's a professional bird illustrator and nature lover from Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Marley. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm excited to chat with you.
Great. Well, let's just start off. We have a very visual audience, so let's just start off. Can you share any of your recent bird illustrations or little bird sketches that you have
Yes,
going on?
totally. I'm surrounded by birds on my desk, so I'm just gonna pick up a couple and hand and show them to the camera. I finished this barn owl just yesterday. The camera is a little cranky about focusing sometimes. There we go. Got a barn owl. I've also got a sketchbook just full of all my favorite birds.
Ooh, oh my
um,
gosh.
some shiny
Wow.
crackles, nuthatches are some of my favorites too. So yes, birds all around, surrounded by birds, and couldn't be happier about it.
Cool. Great. So that leads me to my next question, which is could you describe for us and for everyone watching your sort of ideal bird illustration session? Like, what would your
Mm.
ideal session look like?
That's such a nice question. I don't think anyone has ever asked me that before, but I think that my ideal sort of bird drawing session or process would be that I've been out in the field and I saw some bird that I felt really connected to, saw some really cool interaction or behavior, or it was a beautiful time of the day and that experience was like really fresh in my mind. And so from that, I would love to like come back to the studio, do some sketches on that experience, pull in some outside references, and then creating art based on an experience and a connection to a bird is my favorite kind of bird art. So that's my ideal.
Awesome. I think you said the word connection like five times in there. So I'll definitely have to follow up with you about that one. And so my next question is, could you sort of talk about the difference? Because I know that you're in both of these realms of illustration, science illustration, and nature journaling. So could you sort of describe the difference between bird illustration and bird nature journaling?
Totally. Yeah, very different animals, those two. So, bird illustration, like my scientific illustration work, is art in the service of science, right? It's a piece that has to communicate some specific information very clearly and very accurately. So those pieces are something that I love to do, but a totally different mental process for getting the references, getting the information, getting started, double checking with my client. Is it right? Are we doing well? And when I'm nature journaling, it is so much more relaxed and freeing. I think of it more like a love letter to the birds that I'm drawing rather than, having to be super accurate. I just get to relax and like draw what I love and not fuss too much in the details. And I do like to fuss even in my personal work, but it's a lot more of a joy based experience. And I'm going to say connection again, a connection based experience. Like, I love this bird, so I'm drawing it instead of this is my job and I need to be very serious and perfect and accurate. So it's sort of two different sides of me, and I really love them both. I don't want just one. I want them both.
Got it. That was, I like how you described that. I'm just going to look over here at the chat and say hi to people who are commenting in the chats. I see Chel's here, Eli is here, and Danny are here commenting in the chat. And we have multiple other people watching who aren't commenting in the chat. If you have any questions or want to share anything, go ahead and post those in the chat. And thanks for everyone who is contributing there. Okay, cool. So, um, I guess my next question then is I think that like for example are you do you participate in the Nature Journal Club Facebook page much or I'm not sure
you
if you're
know,
on there.
Just lightly. I really like to look at what everyone posts, but I don't do much posting myself. I really like to fuss over my birds. And if I was going to post, I would want to post my messiest stuff because I feel like nature journaling needs to just like,
Okay.
be super free. So
All right.
I'm
Okay.
sometimes
Okay.
scared to post my birds.
All right. Okay. So yeah, this is perfect because what I wanted to ask you is I think that you might be an exception in that department because I think that most people are actually posting their most polished pictures of pretty birds on there.
Totally.
And so I think what ends up happening, partly because the way the algorithm works, is that um, people go on there and they sometimes are intimidated because our community in nature journaling is made up like much more than 50%, I think, with beginners,
Hmm.
which is, it was a really good sign, I think, actually. But sometimes those people, when they're on the Nature Journal Club Facebook page, they might get the wrong impression when they see all of these polished paintings. And then they go out in the field and they see a bird and it doesn't stay in the same place for 5 seconds, maybe
No,
20 seconds. So,
maybe.
what would you recommend for those people who see all of this on the Facebook and the Instagram, and then when they go out and try it, they find this sort of like difference there?
Yeah. My favorite phrase relating to people creating art and sharing their art is be gentle with yourself. Like it's true. Birds are notoriously difficult subjects. They literally fly, so it's quite hard to, capture them when they're in a still moment. But, I do a lot of different kinds of nature journaling. Sometimes I'm out in the field journaling. Sometimes I go out in the field and kind of collect experiences and then come home and journal on those. And the ones where I'm out and I'm actively drawing in nature are so wildly different from those like curated studio pages. And I love them both for different reasons, but they're not supposed to look perfect and finished and fussed over and everything. It's okay for them to be sort of a wild page of whatever you can get, because at the end of the day, it's not about the art that you create, it's about solidifying that experience in your mind. Nature journaling is about being present and having those connections. Now I'm like, oh my God, I do say connections a lot. But creating those like uh paths in your brain to you look at this art and you remember that experience. So it's really hard because we all want to make beautiful things and have everybody ooh ah over them. That is fun, but that's not the goal, right? The goal is to have those experiences and just make art. And every piece of art you make, even if it's not perfect, is a stepping stone to improvement on the next one. So be gentle with yourselves, y'all.
Great. Okay, so someone please write "be gentle with yourself in the comments so that everyone remembers
Yes.
that, and maybe we could be like a new tattoo
There you go. Put
that
a
you could
y'all on the
have.
end of it too.
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you for that. I love that. Where I live in California, many people are starting to use that as
Yes.
a gender neutral pronoun. So
Perfect.
it's because, and also on YouTube, it's very apparent that pretty much everyone says, "Hey guys," at the beginning of their
Yeah.
YouTube show. And it's like, not everyone identifies as a guy. And I know lots of groups of women who do use that term as well to self
Totally.
identify. But I think it's, yeah, y'all is very useful. Okay, so my
Yep.
next question is you mentioned sort of in this difference between nature journaling and bird illustration, that the bird illustration is about communicating the information, and specifically for your clients. So
Mm.
when you're doing the nature journaling, who's that communicating to? Who are you communicating to with your more sketchy type stuff?
It's it sounds selfish, but it's for me. It's me communicating to me. And I do like sharing my sketchbook with others, really just my friends and family, but it's it's for me, and it's about having those experiences and being still and growing my craft as an artist is another reason that I fill my journal, to keep pushing myself and trying new and different things. So, yeah, it's, my other work is to communicate to the world, and I think that my sketchbook work is a record of myself for myself.
Great. Okay, cool. All right. So just kind of, I think for people, maybe I have a feeling that a lot of people watching probably have some history, know some of your history. But just for people who don't, maybe could you sort of describe your career trajectory to becoming a bird illustrator? Because I think that's one of the things like when I was in high school, no one, and I went to the career fair, that was not one of the options.
Oh my gosh, now I want to have a bird illustration table at a career fair in high school.
Please.
I did not have that either. I think I've been an artist sort of ever since I can remember, just sort of creating since I was a kid, and focused on that through high school, was totally determined to go to art school. I only applied to one college, so thankfully I did get in. And I went to Savannah College of Art and Design, and I was like, should I major in illustration or painting? I'm not really sure which path I want to take. Tried painting, had a scary teacher, and was like, maybe illustration is better. So I switched to illustration, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like, even being in art school, I was like, what is my path? And so I thought for a while maybe I would be a children's book illustrator, but thankfully, gosh, so thankfully, I stumbled upon a scientific illustration course, and I was like, whoa, this seems cool, because I was always struggling to. It was like my classmates so naturally came up with this like whimsical, beautiful work, and I was like, man, I'm missing the whimsy. Like, I like to draw like flowers and stuff, just beautiful stuff from nature. So when I took that scientific illustration class, I was so relieved that there was a possible path where you can just accurately draw and paint cool stuff that already exists in nature, and that can be the whole thing. So I was really stoked about that, and it's kind of a goofy story. They asked, pick a focus for this semester. What do you want to focus on? So I went to the bookstore, and there was a Birds of the World book on sale. And I was like, oh, birds are pretty. And so I started painting all these random birds, and then started looking around and realizing that birds were everywhere. And kind of fell in love with birds through art, and I have not stopped painting birds since. So that's kind of how it got going.
Great story. I did listen to some of your other interviews on some podcasts, so I knew a little bit about that. And I feel like you could probably be advertising that book if you have it or know
Yeah.
who they are or affiliate links or something, because
Right.
I listened to the other podcast and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like this book was life-changing for you. So it must be pretty amazing. Maybe you could send me a link to that later, and I'll
I
post that for
will.
people to check out.
I
But
will.
I'm not going to let you off the hook, because
Yes.
this is sort of a thread that I've noticed in some of your other interviews. But and I wasn't expecting that you'd use the exact same phrasing, whimsical, in this conversation. So
Whimsical.
I guess my question, because this is something I'm very curious about as well, having
Yeah.
done different types of art myself. Um, but could you talk a little bit more about like how that felt, like the difference between sort of drawing whimsical things versus drawing things from life? Because I feel like it's a little bit confusing, or sometimes, because you also mentioned in one of your interviews that that there's drawing isn't necessarily a talent, but that
Mm.
some people maybe are do you have sort of a predisposition or a different type of imagination. So I
Yeah.
I don't think you would disagree that you have an imagination. So
Right.
what is that difference then? Like, what is that between drawing things like from life, from nature, versus kind of just inventing like weird artsy, like we can call it artsy, whimsical, whatever, like
Yeah.
what do you think is really the difference there?
Gosh, that's such a great question. And what I know and what I've found is that the things that I can come up with in my brain have never been as beautiful and as perfect in their uniqueness as what exists in nature. Like, I do not have the ability to come up with what exists in nature already that is so complex and sublime and gorgeous, and it just feels like it's there for me. And when I was, in editorial illustration and advertising illustration, it just, for lack of a better phrasing, it felt like pulling teeth. It was like I couldn't
Mhm.
ever it never flowed through me. But when I was in nature or studying natural subjects, it came so easily. It felt so natural. So I don't know what about me. It might be, I love scientific illustration so much. It might be my like analytical mind. Like, I love having a reference and like studying it, or being in my binoculars and trying to notice as much as I can. Like, I want to know more for my art. And I think that when you're doing those like more artsy creative illustrations, it's just coming straight from your head. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not that my head is empty, but I'm like, where are my references? Where's my inspiration? And it's all outside of me, I think, is what I've found.
Yeah, there's this Leonardo da Vinci quote. I wish I had verbatim, but it's something about how I'll translate the male pronouns, but like those who are do not have a foundation in nature have little room for inspiration or for profit, I think was
Hmm.
something that he said. But it reminds me of the science illustration school where John Muir Laws studied. There was another alumni from that school, and I'm blanking on her name right now, but she went on to a very great career in character design, and she was
Mm.
actually she designed Jar Jar Binks and a lot of other. So Jar Jar Binks is probably not the best one to
Awesome.
start with because a lot of people don't like Jar Jar Binks, but she also designed a whole bunch of other Star Wars characters.
Yeah.
And she said that her background in science illustration and her foundation in nature and anatomy really was what allowed her to design these characters for Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that too. I think that now that I am so comfortable in my foundations as a scientific illustrator, I'll probably be able to create some like cool bird creatures for Star Wars, and draw from those references that are already existing in life and create something new. You know what I mean? So I
Got
think
it.
that now that I feel comfortable in that and that I can pull from that, it just felt like in the beginning I was just grasping at straws, like, where is the inspiration? And I think I have it now.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I totally feel you on that one. I've gone through similar kind of ups and downs with, I used to make everything up, and then I started looking at references a lot. And then after a while of looking at references all the time, if I just sit down and try to make up a drawing, I can't. I'm going to look
Right.
over here at the comments. And give some love to the people here in the comments. It seems like there's a lot of your friends and followers on here.
Yes.
Chels is here. Tom Hobel is here. Seth Thuberales is here, and let me just share this one because I think this is sort of affirming to what you're saying.
Okay, that's fair. I have to say, I do have little hats right here that I sometimes put on my bird. So let's call that
There you
whimsical.
go.
There we
There
go.
you
It's on my
go.
head now.
Stace of Spades is also here. Ryan Lee, ZH. I think that someone is saying that they'd love to see your Stace is saying, I think they'd love to see your whimsical kind of creatures made up from
Mhm.
birds. So maybe that'll come out later. Okay, well, I
Maybe.
feel like that could be a whole rabbit hole or bird hole we could go down forever.
Sure.
But the next thing I noticed in one of your interviews is you were talking about, well, this goes with something on your website too, but you mentioned enjoying the feeling of not knowing. And on your website, it says, I think this is a quote, I document each of my subjects with the wonder of first discovery.
Hmm.
So, could you sort of describe how not knowing and sort of first discovery goes with science illustration? Because usually, when the word science usually feels like very expert
Mm.
to me. So, how does not knowing contribute to your sort of your ability to be a science illustrator?
Yeah, I think that. So I started as an artist. So I'm an artist who came to scientific illustration. I'm not a biologist or an ornithologist. And part of the joy of becoming a scientific illustrator and working as a scientific illustrator is I have learned so much. Like I love working with a collaborator who's an ornithologist and they are the expert on their bird, and I just get to like soak in that information like a sponge. And the more I learn about the bird, the easier it is for me to draw and paint them accurately, right? Because every time I learn something new, it informs, my image of them, my understanding of them. And I like to think about, old naturalists, no one necessarily specifically, but when we didn't have the internet to just like look at 10,000 pictures of a bird and create an accurate illustration, I love the process of discovering new things and learning from people who can share their expertise. And every time I learn something new, it's so exciting. It really like solidifies it in my mind. And then I
Mm.
further solidify that knowledge by painting or drawing on that subject. So I never want to stop learning about birds. I learn something new, I swear, every day. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I think that kind of corresponds with a lot of the neuroscience that John Muir Laws talks about a lot in his Nature Journal teaching, and he is a science illustrator as well. But he talks about how the literature on brain science suggests that curiosity and this being in a state of learning actually facilitates overall brain processes, and that if you think you know something already, that your brain actually kind of closes down on a
Mm,
level that is neurologically, like scientifically, like measurable. So
wow. Yeah. I
that's
never
really
want to do
cool.
that. I want my brain to be forever open to bird knowledge.
Great, awesome. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to ask you about is, um, can you talk to me a little bit about eyeballs? Tell me a little bit about bird eyeballs, because that seems
Mhm.
like that's something that's important to you.
It is important to me, and I've had a lot of interesting discussions with other artists who paint birds or just other animals, maybe even humans. And we all have different strategies about eyeballs for the same reason. So I save my eyes for last in every single one of my paintings. And I do that because it's like calling an eyeball a cherry is weird, but it's like the cherry on top, right? It's what brings the painting together. It's what gives the bird a soul. My mom is so funny. I'll send her pictures with my birds without eyeballs, and she's like, "Give that bird a soul," like so. It's sort of bringing things to life, and also, I think having a process like that sort of helps me know when a painting is done because I know that all my other
Mm,
artists out there might struggle with when is a painting done. So having this methodical process of the soul is granted, I can make some tweaks, and now the bird is whole and we're done. So bird eyeballs, I guess, the window to the bird soul.
yeah, that's really cool. Did you ever, when you were a kid, did you ever see the kids' book about I think it was like it was like supposedly historical, and it was about a Chinese painter who was commissioned by like some emperor to paint this dragon, and he spent like a year or 10 years painting this dragon. Then they paid him and he left the city, and he was like riding away on his horse, and then the emperor like sent someone to go get him, and they went out and they got him, and they're like, you didn't paint the eyeballs. And he's like, oh, I can't, if I paint the eyeballs, it will come to life. And they're like, ha ha ha. The emperor was like, no, you must paint the eyeballs. So he like came back to the city and he like painted the eyeballs really quick, and then he like ran away, and then the dragon like came to life and destroyed the entire city.
Oh, no.
I don't
That hasn't
remember the
happened to
name of
me
the
yet.
children's. Okay, so look that one up next
I
time
will.
you have some extra time.
I will.
All right, so next question, we're going to shift from this into more kind of technical.
Oh,
Tell us a
sure.
little bit about your materials. People are always
Mm,
curious, like they see people's artwork, and like maybe you could hold up one of your recent pages again and
mm,
sort of just describe some of the materials that went
sure.
into it.
Definitely. Let me pop open a different sketchbook here. So recently I did this like study page of woodpeckers, which I really enjoyed. Hey, that looks familiar. It was for the Wild Wonder Nature Journaling Conference. It was very fun. But yeah, so this is gouache, and I was really excited to teach a gouache workshop because I feel like it's kind of a mysterious medium. Like you're either in the know about gouache or you have no freaking clue what it is. So gouache has become my favorite medium by miles and miles and miles in the past. I don't know, really just about maybe 2 years. I was kind of a watercolor gal for a really long time and started experimenting with gouache and really enjoyed it. And so Holbein is my favorite brand. So Holbein gouache all the way. And I've had a lot of success with acrylic brushes with Holbein gouache. And that's kind of where I'm having a nice cozy time right now with my
Cool. And
materials.
are you using the Stillman and Burn Nova or something? I think you mentioned in your.
Exactly that. I have, in fact, two Stillman and Burn Nova series. One is spiral bound, and one, is kind of like a softback. But yeah, I live for the gouache on the toned paper. It's so nice to be able to start with that middle ground and be able to build up the bright and the dark values and have the medium values just already in place.
Great. Could you talk a little bit about your palettes? Because before your class, I took your class. Obviously, this is my page, one
Yes.
of my pages from that class, and I wasn't that. I don't have that much experience with tone paper or gouache, but could you talk a little bit about the palettes that you use? Because I think I have gone through a couple stages. I think of gouache as like the dark side of the force or opaque side of the force for some reason.
Sure.
A lot of
Yeah.
people I know are like, "Oh, you're starting gouache!" Like, "Oh my god," And I feel like Anakin Skywalker or something. And so, could you like talk about the palettes, because that's been a little bit confusing for me, like what to put it in? Will it like crack and like all fall out? And I've talked to multiple
Yes.
people who are like, I wasted like $300 on gouache and then it all fell out. How do you
Yes.
do that?
Well, right. Okay. So all of those things can be true. So gouache is cool. I always call it watercolor's cousin because it's kind of similar in the way that you can reactivate it after it's dried. So I was working with this watercolor palette for many, many years. And I don't know, maybe you might be able to hear there's little gouache
Yep,
bits rolling around in there.
I can hear
So
it.
I understand the struggle. There's these reservoirs, but once it dries and you flip it upside down, they're all just jumping out of there. It's not, yeah, that's true. True. It's finally out in the world. I feel relief,
I can
honestly.
tell some of your Twitch community is here because this
Yes.
level of of funniness in the comments is
Yes.
not. I mean, we have some pretty funny people on at the Nature Journal show, but this
Yes.
is like taking it to another level. So thank you, Seth.
Yep. Yes, y'all are out there. It's great to see you,
So
by the
you
way.
use
And
two palettes then is what you end up
yes,
doing, right?
right. So I have three, I'll admit. So when I am planning to let things dry on my palette, but I don't want them to crumble all over the place. I have found that ceramic palettes are the way to go. You can probably see that I have these pretty like huge gobs of paint on there, and like, they're not really going anywhere. So the ceramic palette has kind of like held on to those paints for me. And then lastly, this is just gouache show and tell. Um, oh my gouache is what we always say that is going to be my
Oh my
TV
gosh.
show. Oh my gouache. So I have found this Stay Wet palette. So it has a silicone lid and little sort of like snappies on the side.
Yep.
And it keeps the gouache wet as if it is just out of the tube. And that's really awesome
Okay.
because once it dries, you can reconstitute it just like watercolor, but it's just not the same as having it fresh from the tube. So that's my sort of gouache
Okay,
hack
cool.
is
Okay, so I totally have that. I after your class, I like was doing all of this like because I tried to create a list of all of the art
yes.
supplies mentioned at Wild Wonder Conference.
Mm,
And so I made a huge list of that, and I thought that I found a palette similar to that one, but I didn't know. I
mm,
sort of assumed you were just using ceramic mixing palettes because they were like cool and artsy and you could like support local ceramicists, but I
that
didn't
too.
realize there was an actual practical element to it.
Yes, totally. I have maybe four ceramic palettes by this one artist. Her name is Caitlin Bongers, if you ever want to find her on Etsy. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
please. How
heard
do you spell that name? I would love to. Is it with a K or a C?
Caitlin, then Bongers. Yes.
Okay,
So
I'll post that in the description below later.
yeah, I had heard that ceramic palettes kind of had a better hold on the like gouache skins or the
Oh,
dried gouache. And I was like,
no
well, I'll try
way.
anything at this point because my gouache is crumbling around in my other palette. And lo and behold, it has been pretty awesome. So,
Okay,
uh, no
great.
complaints.
All right, I'm just gonna thanks to Crawley Boys for typing this out in the comments. I'll just put that up here for people. So then,
Thank you,
what about
Crawley
for the
Boys.
field? What about using gouache in the field?
Ooh, so I do use this dang palette, and there's nothing wrong with this palette. The gouache just doesn't stick to it. So what I'll typically do is I will uh your like reusable grocery bags that have that like big flat sort of rectangular bottom. I'll just put
Mhm.
this guy like flat in the bottom so it's not going to flip over and the little crumblies aren't going to go everywhere. And that's how I use gouache in the field. I don't think it's ideal. I end up using watercolor in the field more because it
Okay.
is a heck of
Okay.
a lot easier to
All right.
transport. Yeah.
That's what I've been trying to figure out is like this whole I've been trying to understand because I think with art supplies it's sort of like gardening and maybe like voodoo is people have these like weird things that they just do because their grandma
Right.
or their teacher told them and they don't necessarily
Right.
have like a real reason. Okay,
Hmm.
cool. I feel like I could talk about gouache for a lot longer.
We could.
But the next thing that I wanted to talk about is in one of your podcast interviews, you talked about an experience with an orchard oriole, and I think you were walking your dog with your husband, and you suddenly heard a bird sound that you didn't recognize. So I feel like I learned a little bit about your husband being really into birds already, but does your husband nature journal or sketch or draw at all?
No, not
Okay,
literally a lick.
okay, great. But he is into birds and nature and stuff.
Mhm.
So
Totally.
my question is, and there was actually recently someone posted something on the Nature Journal Club Facebook page about this, and this is something that I've noticed a lot. Is like, do you have any like recommendations, or maybe just sharing your own experience could be helpful for other people? But I think a lot of people are in this position where their spouse or partner, or the people that they go out into nature with aren't
Mm,
necessary. Maybe they're like hiking or mountain biking and they're like, let's go. And the other person is like, wait, I want to look at this thing. And,
mhm,
we're like
mhm.
geeking out on one thing for like an hour. And the other
Yeah.
person or partner or spouse or whatever is like, So
Yes.
maybe you're very compatible in that way, but could you just talk about like strategies or your own
Hmm.
experience or anything that could help people around that?
Yeah, I know that this won't be applicable to everyone, but if there's one person who it is applicable to and it helps, then I'll feel good about it. I, try to sort of be proactive. My husband's name is Zach. I'll warn him if I'm like, I want this to be one of those drawing walks,
Okay, okay.
so that it's not a surprise. It is he knows how that goes. So communication about what that looks like is really important so that it's not a surprise and all of a sudden you're out there and you have to sit for an hour and a half and it sucks. You don't want to trap somebody while you're nature journaling. One of my favorite activities with Zach is he really likes to fish, and I don't. I like to hang out on the bank and like draw cool plants and stuff. So yeah, I think that finding an activity where your partner can do what they love to do and you can do what you love to do, and there's time for you both, has been really cool. So I like love fishing because of that, even though I don't I don't fish.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm gonna do a whole episode about this because, and I
Hmm.
see Tom just posted a trail loops
Yeah.
as a. But I want to post like all, I want to make a video all about strategies for this, and I love the like, okay, fishing is it's not necessarily what you're into, but on this like time, place, movement spectrum, it
Hmm.
is actually the needs are similar to painting or nature
Hmm.
journaling.
Totally.
Or like what Tom's mentioning is like trail loops. If you can somehow be like, I'll stop at this spot, you can do a loop. We can meet back here and then whatever, keep going.
Yeah.
I want to create like a list of these strategies. Does anything else come to mind around that? I love the fishing one, but anything else around this?
Not anything too specific other than
Okay,
just communicating, like being clear about if you're
in a
going
bit,
to be
yeah,
nature journaling, it's not a surprise.
got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's so huge is expectations. If we have different expectations from each other, that can be really confusing. Cool. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is what I'm always my girlfriend really likes lots of movement, either like running or like just
Right.
kayaking. And I kind of want to like take the kayak to the shore and like check something out. And
Totally.
but I think sometimes the expectation and just being really clear in advance is probably, you're right, is the best way to start.
Definitely.
Okay, cool. Well, that's my first page of questions. Okay,
Nice.
so I have
We're doing it.
one more question before the lightning round, and that is, what is your dream project? Like, what would be the holy grail for bird illustration for you, or like, what is the thing that you'd most love to do, and like, if yeah, you would just be super stoked for.
Yeah, I have kind of a twofold answer to that. I really want to illustrate a field guide. I'd be super excited for it to be for Tennessee, but I would be
Mm.
exponentially stoked if I could get in my lifetime like a North American birds field guide by me.
Mm.
I would be so stoked because field guide illustration has been such an inspiration for me, and I often look to have, which way should I lean? I have like my two stacks of field
I see
guides behind
Sibley.
my head, right? Sibley and Peterson. So and also that field is really male dominated, and I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
ready. Like I want to be a
bring
household
it.
name of a field guide, and yeah, I think that's my dream.
All right, we're here for you. I think that I didn't want to kind of assume that there was the gender part of it, but yeah, when I start thinking, I'm like, yeah, okay.
Hmm.
I mean, I feel like there have been some amazing and famous science illustrator plant women, like,
Hmm.
um, and even though they have not been like their names have not like don't come up to the surface
Right.
as much because there's huge discrimination issues there. But yeah, I mean, I think you have your name would look good on a field guide too. So
Thank you.
post something in the comments if you want to see Liz do a field guide to birds of North America. Okay, cool. Okay, do you think you're ready for the lightning round?
Yes, there's one question I'm worried about, but we'll power through.
Okay, so make your best lightning sound.
Oh, does lightning make sound?
You're
That's my
obviously a nature
answer.
journaler because you're asking questions already. Lightning, thunder, whatever.
Okay. There it is.
Okay, great. All right, so first question, these are sort of quick ones. Is coffee an essential art supply?
Yes.
All right. Is your studio organized or messy?
Messy. I feel
All
called
right.
out.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. I haven't been keeping track, but it's probably like 90% of people have answered that way to this question.
Yeah.
Does nature journaling, do you prefer to nature journal or make art alone or with other people?
Alone.
Okay. Does your family understand your art?
Yes. It took a while, but yes.
In case they're watching,
Hi,
okay. Do
fam.
you eat snacks while you are nature journaling or making art?
Yes, I eat snacks all the time.
All right. Would you rather nature journal plants or animals?
Animals.
Okay, that was
Friends.
kind of obvious one for you. Ink or graphite, if you could choose between one or the other.
Oh, heck. Graphite, I guess.
Okay.
But I'm not sure.
All right, that's it for the short questions. If you can nature journal with any historical figure, even if they're not necessarily known for like art or nature or whatever, like who would you from history, if you could go
Whoa.
from history with anyone and go nature journal, who would you want to go with?
Oh my gosh. Huh. I don't know. I'm not sure I'll be able to summon an answer for this from the depths of my brain. I might have to like ruminate on this one a little bit and try to, you know,
There's no one from history. I mean, we've had answers. John Lennon was an answer.
hmm.
Actually, from Beth Ann, your best friend from Australia,
Yes.
best friends from high school. And
Exactly.
we've had multiple people mention like Charles Darwin or whatever. But
Mm. Yeah, my knee-jerk thought was Audubon, but that's not my answer. Like I really admire his art, but I don't wanna spend time with him. I I wanna know like who was a pioneer in scientific illustration, who was a woman and maybe has yet to be recognized in her field. I want to hang out with her. I don't know who she is, but I
yeah,
want to hang out with her.
there we go. So you can come up with that answer later, maybe post on your
Mm,
Instagram
there you
or
go.
on your Twitch or something. Okay, next question. All right, here's a good one. So you're going to be stranded on a desert island.
Mm,
All of your survival needs will be taken care of, but you can only bring 5 art supplies. And there's going to be amazing birds, really cool endemic birds and plants and animals. So what art supplies would you bring?
okay. Wow. Great question. I'm going to have a pencil. So I guess that's one.
Hmm. Okay, you can
um,
keep the count.
okay, I'm
I'll eat
keeping
this
the count.
chocolate. Well, yes, Tom is mentioning this is the this
Hmm.
has Maria has been mentioned before
Yes.
for this, and she's amazing and doesn't get as much recognition, anywhere near as much
She is
recognition as she should.
she is incredible. She did a lot of botanical illustration,
Yeah,
right?
that was her
Okay.
botanical and entomological. Tom, thank you so much for her name was
Yes.
slightly slipping my mind there.
Hmm.
So, oh,
Yes.
Crawly Boys has another. I know we're interrupting
Ooh.
your
No, this is fine. More
desert
time to think.
island. I'll eat some chocolate while we're
Snacking.
okay.
I'm into it.
Go ahead
Genevieve.
with
Yeah, I
your.
don't know Genevieve, but I would hang out with her and Maria for sure.
Mhm.
Okay. So my pencil, I'm just going to say it's going to have an eraser built in so that I'm not wasting
Great.
another one of my supplies on erasers. Cuz you do need that. Um I mean, it's probably because it's in front of me and I'm obsessed with it right now, but I'm going to go with the Stillman and Byrne Nova Series notebook. Probably, spiral bound because that just seems logical and like it'd be a little tougher for the desert island. Yes, there you go. So that's two. So does a set of Holbein gouache count? Can we have a
Yeah, I
set
count
count?
watercolor sets as one. Yeah,
Okay.
totally.
And then I would think so for number 4, I'm going to change my finger orientation. For number 4, I'm going with like whatever the fanciest acrylic brush in the universe is that's going to like hold its shape and it is going to stay nice and pointy, but it doesn't have to be the smallest brush in the world. Like maybe what size is this? Like a number 6. So it's not super tiny, but you can get the details with the point at the end. So that's 4. What's 5? What if I only need 4?
That would be amazing. That would be super badass of you if you could.
Maybe,
Great.
yeah, I think just those. I think I'm set.
Okay.
I'm happy on my island.
Awesome. Okay. So next lightning round question is: do you read fiction?
Yeah.
Okay. Which fictional character? It could be. It doesn't have to be from a book, but
Okay.
which fictional character from a book or a movie that you're into or that read as a kid would be best at nature journaling?
Best at nature journaling.
Hmm.
Well, okay, Hermione like sprung to my mind. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
Okay.
She
Oh,
would rule
totally.
at nature journaling.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Great. Well,
Yeah.
I didn't want to. So on my thing, I have Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and Star Wars. So, but
Hmm.
you automatically okay. Great. Yeah. Totally. That sounds good. All right. Last lightning round question. There's going to be a Summer Olympics for nature journaling Olympics. Which nature journaling Olympics event would you participate in?
Slowest bird painting.
I like it. So far, there's a lot of speed. People have mentioned a lot of speed ones, but I like the slow.
I'm in it for the long haul. Slowest bird painting.
All right, great. Well, you survived the lightning round, and that
Whew.
answer sort of segues to my next thing, which is you are very active on Twitch. And when I went there, I was like, dang, she's been doing this for 3 hours already when I showed up yesterday. Could you talk a little bit about that? Like for people who don't know anything about it, I didn't hardly knew anything about it. What is Twitch? What do you do on there? What do people need to know?
Gotcha. Yes. So I'm on Twitch 3 times a week these days for 4 hours at a time. So essentially to people who have never been on Twitch before, I kind of feel like it is me inviting you into my studio. We're going to hang out. I'm going to work on my work. You might be working on your work. And we'll spend some time together. So Twitch is a live streaming platform. It became famous for video games, which I also love, but there's also a really vibrant art community on Twitch. And within all of these sort of subcategories, there are categories beneath and beneath. So there's the art community, and then there's like traditional artists, digital artists, ceramicists, people who create art supplies, body painters, woodworkers, literally anything that you would be interested in. There's someone streaming that on Twitch. So it's essentially you come into my studio. We have a lot of fun. I think that for me, Twitch has sort of helped me bring back some like silliness and goofiness into my art because I really am a super goofy person and I like to have a lot of fun with my Twitch folks and goof around, and I'm doing my scientific illustration a lot, but I am also occasionally doing really quick, silly bird sketches. In fact, I would love to just show you that I have
Yeah.
this whole sort of notebook full of
Oh,
like totally silly bird sketches. And yeah, Twitch is a great time. You know, we hang in my studio, we talk about all sorts of things. I'm always learning from my Twitch community and having a good time and working on, you know, I painted like both of these on Twitch and also this one, you know, so I'm getting work done slowly, but getting work done. And so you can come in, we can chat, you can ask questions about my process, we can talk about life. It's a good time. I hope y'all will stop by.
and how do people? Is there a link? The way I found it was through your Instagram, but what
Mhm.
is the? Maybe someone in the comments who, because I feel like there's a lot of people here from your Twitch community. Could someone post the? Is it what? How? What is the like address, or is it an easy? Did you give that? Send that to me earlier in the.
I think I did. I
Oh, here
might
we
even
go.
still
Yeah,
have
here we
it
go.
copy
Yeah.
pasted.
Oops, I
Okay.
accidentally just clicked on it and went over to it. So let me see if I can. It's a link, so I'm trying not to just like go there right
Right.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll post that in the comments for everyone to see.
Awesome. And yeah, my
Wow.
Twitch handle is I paint burbs. And you know, burb is kind of like the goofy internet slang for bird, and it just felt right. And we paint a lot of birds and we have a lot of fun. Birds and burbs, you know. It's a good time.
Yeah, I was noticing a lot in your interviews you using that word and using this sort of slang and this silliness. What role does silliness play for you? I mean, when I think of science illustration, like I got that. I applied to a program to do science illustration and I like got super into it and I bought this like book and it's
Mm-hmm.
like the Guild of Natural Science Illustrators book and
Mm-hmm.
it has like so in depth and I was geeking out on that for a while, but like what role does silliness play in your life when science illustration seems such a serious thing?
Yeah. I think it's a reprieve. I think it's necessary for me to do my hyper detailed, realistic, scientific illustration work. If I were to do that all of the time, I would burn out. I would wear down. I couldn't keep it up. So introducing silliness, you know, is just such a nice relief. You know, it's like the other side of the coin. I'm still creating art. I'm still growing as an artist, but I get to lighten up a bit and be a little bit more free. And I think that that is what helps me stay as a good
Mm.
scientific illustrator.
Wow, yeah, that's really cool. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. So the other thing sort of related to this is on one of your interviews, you mentioned the transition from teaching in person to teaching online,
Mm,
and you attributed some of your charisma and sort of presence teaching in person to being from the South, Southern U.S.
yeah.
And you said that like being personable and friendly and all of that, and teaching in person and conversational came naturally for you, and then that switching
Mhm.
to teaching online was harder. So I guess my question is, does that recharge you, like, or does that feel like something that you actually have to kind of take? Because doing 4 hour long twitches and sort of that kind of interaction, it seems very natural and fun and all that, but
Mhm.
um, do you recharge? Does that give you energy? I know there's sort of like people use these extrovert introvert terms, but
Mhm.
I feel like it might be more of a spectrum. Like, where does your energy come from? And like, does the silliness, like you said that is a reprieve, but is there another thing that you tap into for your energy, or do you ever feel like tired after being so personable and feeling kind of obligated to be this sort of Southern hospitality, Southern friendliness kind of persona?
Yeah. Gosh, what a great question. It's the the friendliness and the openness is just who I am. I just can't turn it off, you know. So when I'm on Twitch or when I'm on my workshops, I I'm fully myself. I can't. I have no poker face. I can't put on an act or anything. I'm very much just me. So the energy aspect of it is so interesting. It ebbs and flows. I gain a tremendous amount of like heart and energy from my Twitch community. Like being with these people who are so lovely and so wonderful, and like, sometimes the internet can just be such a dark place, but gosh, what a beautiful community of people I've found to care about art and care about birds, and just we talk about everything. So I even though people are like 4 hours, geez, it goes by in a flash. Like it's like when you get into the flow with art, because I'm also taking,
Hmm.
I'm also doing my art, but there's also a flow to being sort of like cradled by this community, and I hope that I give them energy too, because I think
Yeah.
there's a bucket analogy. I never explain it particularly well, but it's like everyone has an invisible bucket, and when you're like kind to someone, you fill their bucket, and I feel very like bucket full after streaming on Twitch, and
Hmm.
I'm lucky in that, and I hope that I'm filling buckets too.
Yeah, I'm sure during COVID, it seems like that kind of stuff has been very therapeutic and very important for people. So,
Yeah.
great. Well, thanks for asking some of those questions about that. All right. So, my sort of last closing questions are a little bit more serious. Um, what do you think the future of science illustration and nature journaling are?
Gosh. I mean, for one, I think that the both of those communities contain a lot more diverse voices, which I know is a
Mm,
good thing, and I'm excited about that. And you know, I struggle a lot with what is my future personally in scientific illustration, because there's so much digital work out there these days, and here I
yeah.
am just like hammering away with a paintbrush, and I I don't know how to do digital art, but I do think that I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid that tactile art is ever going to go out of style. You know what I mean? Like I think that
Hmm.
it's always going to be people even as sophisticated as tablets get. And also, just to be clear, digital illustration is an incredible skill and an art form, and it's just not where I thrive. And I always have felt pressure to like lean that way, but
Hmm.
when I sort of like sit back and really sit with that idea, I'm like actually feel really comfortable in my lane, and maybe that means I should push myself out of it and learn some digital art. But I think I don't know. I think we're going places, and also just recently I have sort of felt like the line between scientific illustration and fine art is sort of getting like beautifully blurred. I used to think that those two things sat in very separate camps, and now I'm
Hmm.
feeling like they can kind of mingle with each other, and that also scientific illustration can mingle with nature journaling. And so I
Hmm.
think that we're all seeing these different art forms be represented in new places, and that's something I'm really excited about.
Oh, I'm so glad I asked you that question. That is a really interesting. I love the sort of like the mingling. I mean, maybe it's just because I like when things are sort of mingling, but I think it was like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, National Geographic had a segment about the magazine had a segment about parasites, and they
Mm.
used like a graphic novel format.
Mm.
And for me, that
Yeah.
was like, oh, this if this is National Geographic magazine is using this method or this art form for conveying information,
Mm.
that is a sign that this is becoming like more mainstream, and that
Yeah.
comics is not just spandex clad superheroes, but it's actually like a perspective or a method of conveying information that's could be about anything.
Totally. A super valid and clear and beautiful form of communication about any number of topics. So yeah, I love that. It's the same feeling I have. It's like, ooh, yay, like it's nice to see, I think scientific illustration was kind of static for so long. It was this
Yeah.
one sort of style that everybody loved, and I like that it can be a comic. I like that it can be a funky infographic. I like that it can be painterly and still teach you, it can be anything, and that's really cool.
Nice. Awesome. Well, this has been such a fun conversation. There's a lot of people watching this live. So for all of you who are getting something out of this conversation, please give it a thumbs up. And then Liz, where for people, I have a feeling a lot of these people follow you already, but what do people need to know? Like, where should people check you out? Where can they find out more about you, what you're up to? I know you offer all kinds of amazing stuff. Where do you want people
Yeah.
to go check you out?
So y'all find me on Instagram at Liz Clayton Fuller Art. I post the most frequently there and updates. I also recommend that you check out my website. I'm really excited because I'm having an original painting release this Friday at noon Central Time. So, uh, as I mentioned earlier, it takes a while for me to paint my birds. So the original painting releases are sort of few and far between. So I'm excited to get to share that with y'all. So check out my website. If you want to hear about upcoming courses and things, I've got a little newsletter sign up there. I promise I'll email you like once every 6 months, so you don't have to worry about that. But website's a good place for you to check out my art and see if there's anything you want to buy. Come hang on Twitch at I Paint Burbs. If you're new to Twitch and you're like, what the heck is going on? Like I said, my community is super sweet. Marley popped by the other day. We had a lot of fun. So y'all come say hi on Twitch too. And I'm on Twitter at I Paint Burbs. And I'm on Facebook at Liz Clayton
Oh my
Fuller Art.
gosh,
I'm
this is too
everywhere.
many
I'm
places.
everywhere.
I'm trying to like copy and paste these into the comments so people can find all of them. But
Thank
wow,
you.
Liz, you are everywhere. And thank you so much for making the time to be here right now. So really appreciate that. Everyone go check out Liz's stuff if you aren't already. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was super fun
You
chatting. It went
helped
by
me
in a
make this
flash.
painting.
I helped you make some woodpeckers. It's the best thing ever.
All right, great. Well, have a wonderful evening, and thank you, everyone. I'm going to give some love to the audience here. Crawley, boys, Chels,
Yes.
and
Thank you
Yetta. I
guys.
saw Andrew was on here. Ivea, Ryan Lee, Seth, Tom. Thank you, everyone who joined in live, and for everyone who's watching this as a recorded show. Seth, Ryan, a whole bunch of people. All right, bye, everyone.
Thanks, y'all. See ya.
Bye.